Greetings from Dallas, Texas. This is Nitin Hakara. Trump is still in charge of the Republican Party. Trump is still in charge of the Republican Party. Why do I say that? Let's find out. A couple of days ago, there was an earth-shattering event in US politics. Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker of the US House of Representatives, was removed in a vote. This is the first ever removal of a speaker by a vote in US history. This country has been a going concern for well over 200 years, and this has never happened before. The Speaker of the House is a powerful man. He is third in line after the President of the United States. So it's the President, the Vice President, then the Speaker of the House. That's the order of succession. So Kevin McCarthy was no pushover. This gentleman invited Modi to speak during Modi's recent visit to the United States. Modi addressed a joint session of Congress, and he shook hands with Kevin McCarthy and thanked him for the opportunity. So this is just one example of the power that the Speaker of the House wields in this country. So Kevin McCarthy was removed by a vote where all of the Democrats in the House voted to remove him, along with 8 Republicans. The effort was led by a gentleman from Florida, a congressman by the name of MattGaetz. So we'll find out a little bit more about how this removal worked and why this came about. Kevin McCarthy was elected Speaker of the House just a few months ago, after a very tough round of voting in the US Congress. It took 15 rounds of voting for McCarthy to be elected Speaker of the House. As part of that election, he had to make a bunch of promises to the hard right wing of the Republican Party. The Republican Party has quite a few divisions within it, and the most clear division is the one between the moderate Republicans and the so-called hard right or MAGA Republicans, which is the Make America Great Again Republicans, who pretty much are Trump followers in every sense of the word. So Kevin McCarthy was walking a fine line as he tried to appease the MAGA Republicans and also appeal to the more moderate wing of the Republican Party so that he could get elected. Now, why was he ousted? Now, he made a bunch of promises that he could not keep. That's basically what it boils down to. So when he was walking this fine line that I mentioned between the two wings of the Republican Party, and also to try and appeal to the Democrats to try and get elected, he made a bunch of promises to all these folks, which were going to be very, very difficult to keep. The key promise that he made to the MAGA Republicans was that he would help them to cut spending in Congress. So the way spending in Congress works is that a series of bills is taken up every year, which allow the government to be funded. So in other words, you have departments like the Pentagon, the Department of Justice, the Homeland Security Department. All of these departments are funded every year by means of bills that are presented in Congress. And these bills are passed on an individual basis to allow these departments to be funded. So what has happened in recent years is that all of these bills have not been passed by October 1st, which is the normal deadline for these bills to be taken up and passed so that the government departments can all be funded as needed. So they have typically let these bills slide past that October 1st date, not reaching agreement on funding, and just passing what is called a continuing resolution. So what is this continuing resolution? It simply allows the government to function using the same level of funding that was allocated the year prior. So in other words, this is just a stopgap measure to allow the government to continue functioning as it would normally. And then once that deadline has passed, the tactic is for them to take up what is called an omnibus bill, which includes a whole bunch of funding for pet projects from Democrats, Republicans, all these politicians who get together to fund their pet projects. They throw all this stuff into this omnibus bill. They try to all rush it through Congress without any adequate discussion or proper oversight or review. And this allows all these politicians to get their way in terms of how the funding is allocated to all of their pork barrel projects, as they're called. So the Republicans on the right, the hard right Republicans, or the MAGA group, if you want to call them that, had a big problem with this. And MattGaetz, when he voted to elect Kevin McCarthy Speaker, explicitly asked for a commitment from Kevin McCarthy, saying that he would not allow something like this to happen again this year. But unfortunately, this is exactly what Kevin McCarthy allowed again. So 4 or 5 individual bills were passed prior to October 1st. And there was also this bill that was passed that was going to allow the government to continue functioning by preventing a government shutdown, as would have happened if these bills had not passed. But clearly, this was in contravention of what the expectation was when Kevin McCarthy was elected. MattGaetz was very clear when he started the effort to oust Speaker McCarthy that he did not want him to go down the path of the omnibus bill. The omnibus bill does not allow members of Congress to discuss spending cuts which could reduce the budget allocations to these different departments and allow wasteful spending to be curtailed. So when Kevin McCarthy started to go down the same path that he had seen previous speakers do before, MattGaetz knew that it was time to step in and pull the plug on the speaker's position in the House. Now, MattGaetz is a huge Trump supporter. Clearly, one of Trump's big agenda items is spending cuts and reducing the size of government. MattGaetz, who belongs to Florida, which also happens to be Trump's home state, has been a rock-solid supporter of Trump all the way. He's a through and through MAGA guy, Make America Great Again guy. So there's no question in MattGaetz's mind that what he is doing is basically in sync with the Trump agenda. When Trump was asked whether he was in support of Speaker McCarthy being removed, he did not come out and say so openly. But it's quite clear that MattGaetz, who is a fairly small-time congressman in his own right, he's not as big as some of the other senior congressmen are. He's a bit of a firebrand, no doubt, but he certainly would not have taken up the initiative on his own without any backing from Trump himself on an item that is so big on the Trump agenda. So it's clear to all who are watching who is actually pulling the strings here. Trump is working behind the scenes to control the Republican Party. Now, Speaker McCarthy was trying to walk a fine line between appeasing the Democrats on the one hand, appeasing the moderate Republicans, and also keeping the MAGA folks from the Republican Party, the Make America Great Again folks from the Republican Party on board. And it would have been a tightrope walk under the best of circumstances. But with such strident divisions between the Democrats and the Republicans, and also the divisions between the MAGA wing of the Republican Party and the moderate wing of the Republican Party, this was going to be a tough job no matter what. So it's clear to most observers now that the Trump agenda is definitely alive and kicking. The Democrats may have filed a bunch of legal cases against Trump, and they may be trying to tie him up in all kinds of red tape and legal wrangling over the next few months. But the thing is that the Republican Party seems to be firmly in Trump's grasp. He is still at 45% or so when it comes to the numbers for the Republican nomination. All of the other contenders are far behind Trump at this point in time. So folks, it seems very clear to me that Trump is not going anywhere. He is still very much in control of the Republican agenda, and he seems to have a firm grip on the Republican electorate. While it'll be interesting to see who is actually elected as Speaker next to follow Kevin McCarthy, it's clear to me that Trump is still around and he will continue to be a force in the Republican Party, and he will be the one in control. Thank you for watching. Take care. God bless America.